Now, first of all, what about the man of God? We have to know something about him and what his responsibilities are in this awful day in which you and I are now living. We find, first of all, that the man of God must rise up and stand. You remember Saul of Tarsus, who became Paul the Apostle? And after he became Paul the Apostle, he was told to stand up on his feet. And that's in the Acts of the Apostles. So this illustrates the manliness. The man of God must not be a mouse. He must be a man, and very much a man. The manliness of his ministry. Stand up. It's time to stand up. The Christian minister never apologizes for his calling. He doesn't apologize for his calling. Why? Because he's been called by God and he knows it. And he has to fulfill that to which he has been called. Yes, he must not minister to anyone as a coward. He must be a man. To stand without God's commission is intrusion. He's to stand, but not stand outside of God's commission. And you'll find that in this 23rd chapter of Jeremiah. So he is to stand in obedience to the divine calling in all humility of mind. And folks, it may seem like a contradiction for a person to be brave and at the same time a humble man. But they go together. They go together. You see, it's the grace of God that's made him humble. He knows that he is what he is by God's grace. Therefore, he has nothing to brag about. So Paul was a minister. He was a minister as Jeremiah at a very crucial time. So Paul was made a minister by Jesus Christ, Ephesians 3, verse 7. So true ministers are not man-made. I said they're not man-made. They're called by God. Many today are nothing more than ecclesiastical, someone has said, than a species of ecclesiastical pottery. Just molded with the hands of men. That's a great statement. That's not original with me. That came from the lips of someone who was a real warrior for the truth of God. True ministers are made according to the gift of God's grace. They are made for the fulfilling of God's Word, Colossians 1:25. And Christ puts men into the ministry, 1 Timothy 1 and verse 12. It is Christ who puts men into the ministry. True ministers are equipped by the Lord to be able to deliver the message to the saints. Ministers must be fitted to lead, prepared to endure the hardships, whatever they may be. And thirdly, enabled to persevere. And since ministers must run with horsemen, according to Jeremiah 12 and verse 5, they should not let the footman weary them. Weary them. So Paul was not only a man of God and manifested it, but he was given the message that he should preach. And that's why he said what he did in Romans 1, verses 16 and 17.